Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, good morning, and welcome back to the Oasis. Actually, scratch that. Start that over again. Take 10. Good morning, welcome back to the tavern. And this is not the Oasis, but it is my second Oasis. You are in the kitchen for the Rogue's kitchen for the tavern. Actually, this here is my pantry kind of area. Used to be my main dining room, but it's been taken over lately with a lot of stuff that's come from the Oasis. The Oasis has provided a bounty harvest this year. Not really super, but not bad for its first year. At any rate, we're going to give a little tour in this area here for all the things I've been doing and working on in this. And today I'm going to be doing some food prep, some cooking. I'm preparing some crackers from my sourdough starter. I've got sourdough bread to make today. I've got a whole lot of things to make today. I'm going to duck out here in a few though. I got to go pick up some stuff I ordered and get things going. But first, let's have a little peek around at the pantry in the Oasis, in the kitchen. Not the Oasis, but the pantry of the Rogue's Tavern. See, I got to get these terms correct. See, I'm so used to saying the Oasis because that's the only place I've been for the last few months. All right, well, we got my buddy over there, you know, hanging out next to my holster, which that's not an actual real gun in that holster. That is a cap gun for that holster. So just so everyone knows, I don't have a pistol hanging out in my house. My pistols are locked up securely in the safe, but that is not a pistol, so, you know, and it's quite okay to have my air gun out. At any rate, tomatoes, tomatoes, tomatoes. These are the tomatoes I've got to process, the ones that are still good. I got another bowl, another bunch over there. Got corn down over here to process from the harvest. I've got some apple cider vinegar being made right here. My first apple cider vinegar ever. You know, some of my spice jars that I've got, all that's mostly homemade spices or homegrown stuff, dehydrated foods and cans, stuff that I use regularly. A couple more jars up and over there. I really need more shelves. I don't quite have enough shelves for everything. Spin around, wave in the mirror. Yay. Always nice to have a mirror. All the garlic I harvested, hanging up to dry. My assortment of peppers and bananas and miscellaneous things. This is the pride of my house right here. This spice rack was made almost 40 years ago. Not quite. It's made in the mid-70s. It was made in the mid-70s. My mom had it made, specifically custom designed to fit the bottles from McCormick. I've even got some bottles dating back to that era on that shelf. I think we've got one right here, still labeled Orange Bits. Yeah, that's one there. You know, so you can see I've got the labels. You can see the labels have varied over the years from McCormick. It's really kind of interesting. But I love that spice rack. It's been with me. I've had it now for, I think I stole it from my mom about 20 years ago. She couldn't use it, and I had room for it, and I told her, I get this, you're never getting it back. So, thanks, Mom. Appreciate it. At any rate, we got up here all my cast iron pans, all the rings for my canning jars, different shelving, everything else. We give this a nice look down that way. That's the look out of my kitchen. So, it's really quite nice. I rather enjoy it. It's a little small, makes getting the work done hard. So what are we going to be working on today? I'm going to be working on this. This is my starter. 160 years old, give or take. It's from the 1840s. This bowl here is the starter discard, because I have to feed the starter, so you got to take some stuff out and discard it. And what you can do with it, you can make pancakes with it, you know, sourdough pancakes, which I don't really like that much. What I do with it is I make crackers. I make some amazing crackers. I'll show you what the crackers are. These are some really great crackers. They store really well. You know, turns out the kids love these better than they do store-bought crackers. And what I make is I make a salt and pepper and rosemary cracker. Salt, pepper, and rosemary crackers, and it makes them very tasty. And so far, my longest storage on them has been 5 weeks, and they're still crispy. So I'm going to practice getting them more and more, put them in vacuum seal bags, and next year I'll be selling those at the market because people like homemade stuff. Anyway, a couple other things down here. This is all the garlic I got to plant next year. Got a whole bunch of local garlic. I'm sorting it out now, building the stakes for it so I can get it planted this next weekend. You'll see this planting, me planting the garlic. So that's really it for the Rogue's Kitchen. That's what we'll call this. This will be the Rogue's Kitchen, the small kitchen at the moment. Eventually I'll have a big kitchen, and a whole lot more will get done. All right, we will hold it at that. Come back to this, and get some prepping doing stuff going. And here we go. All right. Welcome. Here. Wow, I'm upside down. No, that's because things all crooked. There we go. That's better. So, we will get some work done here, show you how things are doing, but I think first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go get the order I placed. Basically, it's a couple of cases of MREs, and I just want to have them at home and instead of sitting at the warehouse, because it's important to have your stocks and supplies. By the time I get this up, everyone will know all the reasons why. Who knows? May not even get up. Anyway, we'll see you soon. Thanks. I am going to start to make some crackers. I need to be able to get the oven. I've got to get in the oven. A couple things from down here. Clink, clink, clink. Get the pans and pots out. Oh, God, I think so. There you go. All right. So, we are going to make my new favorite crackers, sourdough crackers. They're so simple to make. Very, very simple thing to do. Now, what I got to get some flour out, and need the flour, so we'll put that over here. Get it open up. I use a mixture of regular flour and wheat flour at a rate of about 80 to 90% regular flour and about 15, 10, 20% of regular flour. So we need some cups, measuring cups. Good. Okay, now this is a very simple recipe. It's pretty straightforward. You can find it over at theroguestavern.com. And what you do is you use your discard starter. If you're working with sourdough starter, you know what I'm talking about, discard. If you're not, go check out one of my sourdough videos. You can find them, they're over here on that side. Bing, bing. Go find the videos. But what we can also do for you is explain this recipe is simple. It uses nothing but discard starter, flour, and salt and oil. And it's a percentage of each. So we use 50-50 flour and starter. So what I do is, first thing to do is measure out my discard starter. Here it is right here. This is the discard starter. And need a spoon. And get the scale up. I do this by grams. You do want a kitchen scale. Kitchen scale is great for this. So what I do is zero that out, tear it out, and then pour all this into the bowl. And make sure you get all of it. Scrape it all out. So I'm looking at 422 grams, 433, 438, 445. I might have 450 grams in here. Let's see if we can get another 5 grams by scraping this bowl really well. I might get another 3 grams. 448, 448, 449. Oh, I can scrap out 1 more gram of stuff in here. Really scrape it well. Get that last, there it is, 450 grams. So I have 450 grams of starter. So what I need is 450 grams of flour. Okay, get your flour. And what I'm going to do, I need 450 grams of flour. Let's go for 430 grams of white flour and 20 grams of wheat. So tear that out again and scoop it all in there. And that's 200 grams. That's 360. And 420 grams. So we're going to put 30 grams of wheat flour in there. And for the wheat flour, we'll just use a spoon. That'll work really well. Get a nice dry spoon. And we need to bring this up to 450. Woohoo! Perfect. 1 big spoonful. Wheat flour weighs a lot more than white flour. Okay, so you get that all in there. Oh, now you need your salt. So we've got 450, 450. That's 900 grams total. So what we're looking at here is we need a 1% of salt. So 900 grams, that's 9 grams of salt is what we need. So we need 9 grams of salt. So tear that out, and then we put 9 grams of salt in here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 and 9. That's a little too much. 10 grams. We end up with 10 grams. That's all right. That won't hurt us. That won't make it too salty. So you put your scale away. Then what you got to do is you got to mix this up really thoroughly. Okay, and we'll give you an idea on what's going on here with the mix. Okay, you mix it, and it's going to become all crinkly and bits and pieces. And it's not like you're making dough. You're making a dough, but you're not making a dough as in the natural sense where it's a wet dough. This is a very dry dough. Okay, moisture you'll get later, you'll get from using the oil. And I need a table to do this on because you got to really dig in here and get all of that sourdough starter incorporated into the flour you've just added. You mix it up really well. And you can use your hands if you don't mind getting your hands all sticky. You get them all doughy up and all that, but I'm not really big into that. I don't like having my hands all sticky doughed, although I'm going to have to on this one because it's coming together, but it comes together like a crumble. It's almost like how I've seen pie crust made. I'm not really good at pie crust. I've only tried them once in my life, so this is just what I kind of imagine a pie crust to look like when you're pulling it all together. Now, one of the things you have to do is once you get this all mixed in, you have to let it rest for about 15 or 20 minutes, maybe even a half an hour if you've got the time. And what that's for is to allow all the remaining moisture to work its way through the rest of the flour. Because flour takes a little while to become moist when you're working it like this. So what you end up with, I'll give you a look at that, you end up with a crumble. It's all crumbled up and all the flour is mixed into it. And you want to make sure you break up any large chunks and get flour mixed up into it. They should end up with really fine, small chunks in here, is how it works. Get it all worked up. And as I said, once you get it all into ultra fine chunks where it just seems like it's not going to hold together at all, you'll find one of the neat things about dough is it does hold together. If you give it a good squeeze, it kind of holds together as a chunk, but you can crumble it up. Crumble it right back up. And you sort of work all the dough and all the flour in here. All the starter mixed all the way through it. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a timer for 20 minutes and let this sit and rest. And then we'll come back and we'll add the oil and show you what happens once we add the oil to it. So we'll give this a rest right now. Back in a few. Okay, here we are again. It's had its time to rest. And now that it's rested, and you can see it is now much more pliable. It's way more pliable than it was. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the oil to it. Now the oil in here, you can check the recipe on the website, but it requires 10% of the total weight. And our total weight was 900 grams. So we're going to add 90 grams of oil to this. And we're going to mix that oil in. So basically, again, you got your scale, measure it out. And we're up to 30, 40, 50. 50. I put part of it in. Nah, let's put it all in. Let's do it all. 90 grams. 85, 7, 8. And 90. 90 grams of oil. Now I use olive oil. You can use whatever your favorite oil is. I recommend olive oil. Or peanut oil might be good. Never tried peanut oil, but olive oil always adds a good flavor to things, so I recommend using olive oil. Then you mix it in really well with that same spoon you use to mix everything else up. Just mix the oil in there, get it all mixed in really, really well, and this is where you're going to actually get your hands a little bit grimy and dirty and oily. And it's good for your skin. Olive oil is good for your skin. Think of it that way. Okay, so you need some flour. You get a little jar of flour nearby. Make sure your counter's clean. Sprinkle some flour on it. Spread it out. Okay. Then you take all this stuff here, scrape it off the spoon, and you scrape it all out of the jar, or out of the bowl. You sort of compact it all together. The idea is to get it all as compacted as much into a big giant chunk as you can get it. And sort of push it together like you're playing with Play-Doh. Get it all together. Now you're not going to knead this in any way. You're just kind of compacting it all together. Getting it all together in one big doughy chunk. And just bring it all together. Try to get it all. Just keep squeezing it all together. Squish, squish. Don't waste any of that goodness if you can help it. Get every bit of that goodness there. Okay. Get all the bits and pieces. Now, you got to push it together a few times until it starts to stick really well. You need it to stay sticking together as a chunk. Now, this is one of the biggest batches I've made at once. I usually make a 600 gram batch, but this is a much bigger batch. I had a couple of times I had to go into my sourdough this last 2 days. So, okay, now once you get this in this particular shape, don't add any water to it. Just let the oil work its magic. The oil works its magic the more you squeeze it together. Don't knead it, just squeeze it together. Squeeze it together and keep adding those chunks back into it and get them all working together. Okay. Now what you're going to do is you're going to spread it out into something, and you're going to divide this into even sized chunks, whatever you can work with on your table. If you got a really big table, you could do it all at once, but I got a small table, or a small counter here, so I can't do it all at once. What you do, get your dough cutter, whatever. I cut it in half. Then I cut this in about, looks like about thirds. So it looks like I'll be making 6 batches of crackers. Take one of your items here, get your rolling pin. Make sure you got a really good rolling pin. I got one I made of marble. I bought it years ago when I thought one day I will use that rolling pin. And I think I've owned it for about 10 years. Didn't start using it until recently. Mainly when I discovered this. Now what you do is roll this out and you got to get it really thin. This is the big key to crackers. My first few batches were good, they were tasty, they were a little chewy, they didn't keep as well because they didn't cook as well. Okay, you just keep rolling it around. You got to put some flour on, keep it from sticking. You just keep rolling it out, and then you got to keep moving stuff off the counter that's in the way. If you got a small counter like me, everything is in the way. Just like you're rolling out a pie crust. And it's going to be about as thin as a pie crust, maybe a little thinner. So if you're a pie crust maker person, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, well, I can't help you here. All I can say is if you measured it, it's probably about a 32nd of an inch or less. You got to make it really, really super thin to get the most effective. Oops. And you got to put some flour on it to keep it from sticking to the rolling pin. You got to put something there to keep moving it around, getting it really thin out there towards the edges. That's where it gets the biggest problem. And we're down to this last bit here. There we go. Okay, get that out of the way. Okay, and then if you got a pizza cutter, this is a good part. Now, what you need here, before we go into the pizza cutter, you need to do two things. First thing you got to do is you take a fork and you poke it everywhere, random poke holes. This eliminates any air pockets in it. If you don't poke it, which I've done from time to time, you end up with poofed crackers, which aren't too bad tasting, but they're all puffy. Now, what I do with the cracker topping, you put the cracker topping on now. And what I do for that, first off, make yourself some ghee. You can use olive oil for this, but I found ghee fantastic for this. Okay, so ghee is like, I use it all the time now for everything. Ever since I discovered it, made some. I've got a couple jars still in the fridge. So you paste it with ghee, or brush it, give it a good brushing with ghee all over. Let it get worked in really well. Yeah, these crackers, well, they're healthy, but they got a lot of stuff going for them. Give your hands a little bit of dry. I use the pink Himalayan salt in the grinder. So I grind up fresh salt onto it. Just grind salt all over it. Then pepper, fresh ground pepper, off top. Then I got to get the rosemary. Get some rosemary, and then sprinkle rosemary all over it. Give it a little bit of rosemary. Okay, and that's a good one. Okay, now take your pizza cutter and cut it into squares approximately. Whatever's going to work for you. Squares, triangles, picky-doos, anything that excites you. Take your pick, whatever excites you. Okay, and get yourself a spatula, cookie sheet. You can't quite see the cookie sheet. Let's re-angle this camera a bit. There we go. Cookie sheet. And you put these on the cookie sheet, arranging them so that they're all nice and placed on the cookie sheet. I'll tell you, once I started perfecting this recipe, it turns out I don't have to can pickles anymore. Got a friend of mine that cans pickles. As soon as she tasted these, she was like, "What can I trade you for these?" So I've got myself a barter ingredient here, which is really kind of cool. In the world we're headed to, having barter ingredients, barter items, going to be so very important in the world that's coming our way. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, go check out the Ice Age Farmer, Adapt 2030, Alaskan Prepper, and a few other places. Now what you got to do with it? Put it in the oven, 350 degrees, for about 11 minutes, 12 minutes, depends on your oven. You know, and even my oven varies from day to day. I swear to God, it's never the same when I'm cooking with it. And most days it's all right, but some days it just seems like it's just not right. But I live in an apartment building with a cheap-ass apartment stove and oven, which means it's crap for everything I want to do in reality. But that's the life. The life you live sometimes, not always the life you wanted. You know, I had my way, I'd be on a 200-acre ranch somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But I got to make a living. I got to raise some kids. One day, maybe. All right, so got another batch here to make. Need a little more flour. So while your batch is cooking, you can roll out your next batch of dough, and that way you can get it. If you got a couple of cookie sheets, you can keep this going in a pretty good succession of things. Oops. Oops. Oven heat. Got to be careful of that oven heat. Expand there. Yeah, I do enjoy this. Now let's bring this camera back here to see what I'm up to. There we go. Now, the nice thing is when you've sprinkled your pepper, you usually spill some on your countertop, and when you roll your next dough, you end up picking that pepper up and other salt up right into your dough. So you get it rolled right in there. Now, I have tried with it after I've brushed it with ghee and then spread everything on to run the rolling pin across it to see if I can push it into the crackers. It really didn't make much effect. So in the end, it really wasn't worth the extra effort. So it's a matter of what you think you want to try or what you want to do. And, you know, take this recipe, experiment with it, see what you can do with it, maybe, you know, make it your own. And this recipe here, I'd seen several different cracker recipes online and tried a few. I've seen a couple of, one recipe, I only seen one other recipe using sourdough starter, and I didn't like the way it was done, but I did like the recommendations in it that it was a recipe to use percentages on. And that's what I based this on. I think it took me about 4 or 5 tries before I finally got a recipe that worked perfectly every time. So, and that's what you got to do. You just got to keep experimenting and trying to get this working the way you want it to. And I know it's sometimes boring to watch somebody roll out cracker dough or other things, but if you stick with me, you might even pick up an occasional piece of wisdom here. Never know what I might say. Sometimes my brain gets going, I start talking. Worst thing is that I'm not a big talker a lot. At least not to myself. You get me in a room with 1 or 2 people and I can talk ears off. But sometimes by myself, I hear it all in my head, so I don't need to say anything because it's all in my brain. But here I am talking to the 1 or 2 people that are subscribed to my YouTube channel and actually pay attention to videos, watch them once in a while, see what I'm up to. And this is something, oops, and I forgot, we want to poke it first. Poke, 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 poke. Give her a good poke. That's what every woman wants and needs, is a good poke. All right. Poke that up. Oh, I can smell the crackers cooking. Smelling good, even after only a couple of minutes. A little thick there. Let's roll that out a little bit more. And you'll get a feel for it when you start hitting it with a fork as to how thick it should be. And it's really kind of interesting. The more you do it, the more of a feel you get for it. It's kind of like making bread. You know, it's like I have the recipe in my head now for my sourdough bread, but there's a feel of when the dough is at the right thing or when I've let it rise enough. All those little things there. So, salts, ghee, salt, pepper. Pepper's grinding a little heavy. There we go. Okay. And And then we want rosemary. Of all the ones I tasted and tried, I tried some just salt, tried pepper, I tried rosemary, I tried, can't remember the other herbs, tried a couple other herbs. And, you know, the ones that everyone seemed to really, truly love was the rosemary ones. The rosemary, salt, and pepper. That seems to be the fave. So, and I like it. I like it the most out of all the ones I made too. And, you know, make what I like. If everyone else likes it, it's a bonus. If they don't, well, that's their problem, not mine. Because, you know, I cook mostly for myself. I do enjoy when people enjoy what I cook. I do get a, you know, special comfort out of, you know, it's like, hey, they like my food. And I like to impress people, but virtually everything I cook, it's cooked to my taste. And I guess my tastes are really, really enjoyed by many people because most of the time, everyone likes what I've been cooking. Okay, so I got one ready to go in. We've got 5 minutes left in the oven. Let's take a peek at it. No, not quite ready. Turn that on. Let's take another peek. Yeah, not quite ready, but it's getting there. It's unfortunate you can't smell this. It's too bad we can't put smell through YouTube, because if we could, you would just find this smell amazing at the moment. Smell of melting ghee and salt and pepper and rosemary and a little bit of sourdough. This was particularly sour starter too, which is going to make these crackers have an incredible flavor. That's the one really neat thing about it. If you use a sourdough starter, it adds that sourdough flavor into your crackers. And if you like sourdough, oh God, it's good. Well, who doesn't like sourdough aside from kids? I mean, well, one of my kids doesn't like sourdough, the other does. My grandchildren like sourdough. So it's all a variable. All a variable. Looks like this is going to be a big one. I have a tough time fitting it all on one cookie sheet, I think. It's the problem with dividing it up. You never know what you're going to get. But it's all going to get cooked in the end. So what I'll do is I will, after I get that first batch out of the oven, you take a look at that first batch and see what we got. Then I will cut the video at that point there, because that'll be pretty much it, because all that'll be left is for me to make a whole bunch more. And all that's really is just so you can enjoy watching me roll out dough. And get it all rolled out. So we got about 3 minutes left. We're good. Means the video is going to be like 15-20 minutes long, but hey, skip to the parts. Find the recipe on the website, skip right to that and just go to it, or sit here and enjoy the show. You know, for some people, this is quite relaxing to watch somebody else sit there and roll out cookie dough, or roll out cracker dough, which is pretty much like watching someone roll out pie crust dough. And it's, to my mind, it's about the same consistency as pie crust. And I wonder, some days I wonder if this would make a good pie crust. Just because of all the oils in it and how flaky it is, and if I cooked it a little less time, you know, maybe it would make a really good pie crust. I gotta read up on how pie crusts are made. This could be a pie crust dough too. That would make for an interesting tasting pie. Sourdough pie crust dough. That's an interesting idea. I mean, it kind of handles like pie crust dough. I mean, I bought the stuff you get in the store, the frozen stuff, to make pies occasionally when I have the urge. I'm not that big of a baker of goodies. I like making food, not just making goodies. Alright, that looking like, yeah, that's getting there. And we are down to the last minute. Let's see where we're at. This is where you really got to pay attention in the last minute to make sure of what you got. Not quite. Okay, I'm going to let that go for the last full minute. The other thing I noticed too is the longer you're cooking, the Well, what happens is the cookie sheets get hot, so it actually starts to pre-cook them. I noticed that by the time I've got my third or fourth batch going in, they cook faster, and it's probably because the cookie sheets are already hot. Instead of starting with cold cookie sheets, I'm starting with warm ones. There it goes, down to the last minute now. Get back over there. Yeah, I guess that's about right. That's about right. Okay. That one's going to have a tough time fitting into the cookie sheet, but we'll get it on there. All right, let's see what we got. Not quite. It's going to be another 30 seconds on that. Let's give that another 30 seconds to go. So, at any rate, welcome to the Rogues Tavern. Don't forget, if you're enjoying these videos, take some time out, subscribe to the channel. You know, make it a little more exciting, you know, check out some of the other videos, say hi, you know, I don't mind a few comments. You really can't offend me, so good luck, trolls. If the trolls find this, good luck to you. I'll just ignore you. I won't even block you. I'll laugh at you. I will. Laugh until I burst my seams, because trolls are stupid. And that's why they live under the bridge, or in their mama's basement. More likely it's in their mama's basement than the bridge. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. Let's pull this over here so we can get a good view of what's going on in the oven as we get it out. Because I believe, yep, they're looking done now. Yeah, there we go. Let's flip one over here. Here you go. Flip it over. Oh yeah, that's really nicely done. These are slightly on the, maybe a little on the underdone side. But what we need to do is we need to put them over here to cool. And we got to get this one into the oven. And get the timer going. Okay, so there it is. Sourdough crackers from the Rogues Tavern. This is the Rogue's own recipe. Modified from multiple recipes I found online to something that works and is easy to use no matter how much sourdough starter you have, because it is a proportional recipe. It is not a set by cups. It is a set by proportions. How many grams do you have of each item? Okay, anyway, have yourselves a good one, folks. I appreciate you tuning in for this video, and I'll have some more videos. I got a whole lot to do in the kitchen today, so I will bring back for more videos later when I'm starting to work on my salsa. All right, take care. Bye-bye.